Hey there, boys, girls, and flying squirrels. My name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, we talked to the fuzz pop band Ahem about their debut record Try Again, which was released in the beginning of November through Forged Artifacts. I feel like everyone has that band that they find through pure coincidence, and this trio is that one for me. Ahem has this unique blend of sunshine and gloom, which is on full display throughout their debut record. During our conversation, we learned about how just sending a few emails has put the band where they are today, the fact that they haven't played outside of the Twin Cities, and how a microphone stuffed into a baby doll head gave this record its unique closer. The three people who make up the band happen to be some of the most happy, genuine, and most excited people we've talked to on this podcast. It's Ahem on the Ear Coffee Podcast. So I'm joined by Elise, Courtney, and Eric of Ahem. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
You just came from another interview.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely like our first back-to-back interview. That'll probably never happen again.
Yeah.
Would be my
Yeah.
guess.
I was trying to explain to my husband why I had to go on today. I'm like, I've got an interview and then I've got another interview. I'm like, wow, I sound like Madonna.
Have you always gotten like this much attention with your releases? I know I've always like seen stuff with you guys, but it seems like this one has a little more pomp and circumstance than before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because it's on vinyl, or it's our third one at this point, and it's the first full length.
Yeah, it's the debut.
Yeah.
And also Jamie maybe is helping.
Yeah. Oh, right. Working with Jamie Coletta with no earbuds has
Okay.
definitely been like awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. She's been super helpful that way. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, since we were talking about you can move the mics
Okay.
any way you want. Since you mentioned
nice.
you started with Jamie, you mentioned Jamie. I was wondering how you all got connected with her and why you chose to go with no earbuds as like your kind of PR and help you do stuff outside of the Twin Cities.
Yeah. Well, I can go. It was through Matt at Forged.
Okay.
Yeah. So Matt was kind of like, hey, let's like if we're gonna put it on vinyl, which is what we've been talking about, like let's get some help in, and obviously like we aren't really at a place where it's like, all right, cool, let's hire like a half year of like PR, but we're like, well, if there's a way to like do that. So it was really as simple as like we didn't really connect with Jamie for most of the time that they had been talking. I think Matt and Jamie just know each other, kind of through the scene, and I think we're super aware of Jamie's work and like the band she's worked with, and No Earbuds is just like amazing. So he just pitched our album, like when he was basically like, hey, like who knows if she'll be interested, but like she's willing to listen to it. So when you have your masters, just fire them over.
Gotcha.
And so we did, and like blessedly she liked the songs. Yeah. So that's kind of how that went.
Gotcha. I know I read somewhere that you aren't really touring with this one due to just like your personal schedules. Was that kind of a way to mitigate some of the stuff you lose from touring then, or?
It's a good question. I feel like touring is really fun, but oftentimes the touring that I've been on, sometimes you won't have as much impact as you'd like. I mean, maybe if we had really planned out far in advance and, had the capacity to, but sometimes I feel like maybe it's just more helpful to share your music with friends and friends of friends, because sometimes you'll like set up a show and then you end up in a basement in Philly and 5 people are there. And you're like, wow, we just spent all this money to drive and, But touring is great and there are rewards too. But I just think that sometimes it's harder. Sometimes the reward is maybe not as shiny as you expect it to be.
Yeah. I never really got to tour, and like with any bands that I've played with. And so it's just never really been an option, I guess. And I think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to hear what you all thought, but like, I guess in my mind, it was almost more like we love these songs so much. We're like feel incredibly blessed that we even have this platform, like that we've put out 2 tapes and now we have like another one coming out and Forged is willing to do it on vinyl. Like, let's just see how many people can hear it, and knowing that we couldn't tour. Maybe there was this way of being like, this is how we get outside the state a little more and build on some of that. But even from the first tape, I think the first person to write us up was Lauren at the Gray Estates, like with
Yeah.
our very first single. And so I feel like we've always been very lucky to like get covered outside the state too, like from the very first tape. But yeah. That's a good question. I wish we could
Yeah.
tour. I feel like it would be such
Touring
a blast.
is fun.
Yeah.
We've
Like, it'd be a blast.
contemplated like Duluth or Winona, but probably not very far.
Maybe like, we just have to do like lowercase t. Like our tours like St. Paul,
Yeah.
Hudson,
Yeah. Just
Lino Lakes, Minneapolis.
hitting up just kind of the bigger cities and just a little nearby.
Yeah.
So Ahem then really hasn't toured as a band then since.
No.
Oh, that's crazy to think about. Like again, like looking at, like digging into your stuff, just seeing who's touched it and who's seen it, and like finding it. It's kind of a testament to the internet and like
Yeah,
how great
absolutely.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, and like I think I kind of touched on it earlier. It's so hard to like find a way to share your music. Like you can try touring, try all these different things,
Yeah.
but there's like no right way. And
No.
Totally.
Yeah.
it's hard to navigate. Like I feel like in the 80s or 90s, there's like this playbook of like this is what you do, and
Right.
now it's like, what is the way to get your music
Yeah.
out there?
Yeah, we never. I don't think. Yeah, because you're right. Like I feel like if we like drew a map of like our like touring life, like we've probably never played north of the 331.
Oh yeah.
Like south of Eagles,
Yeah, we've never even played
west,
outside of
like west of 7th Street and like east of
East
the
of
Turf Club. Or no,
McAllister.
McAllister.
Yeah.
Like that's literally like our
That's-
that's the only place we've ever played is in that circle.
Yeah.
So it's
So cool.
It's all just been like internet, which is kind of funny because like I feel like
We're
all have
awful.
like we're
We hate
awful
the
at the
internet.
internet. We like hate it. Not to be like So it's
Okay.
kind of funny that like we owe so much to it.
Yeah.
The thing we hate the most.
Yeah, the thing I'm trying to cut back on
Exactly.
and not think about.
Yeah, like even like with my flip phone, I'm still like tweeting from this. I'm like, I feel like this is like the opposite of the point of having a
Yeah.
fucking flip phone.
And sending emojis. I'm shocked it works.
The range
They're
is
like-
pretty limited, and some emojis I send are not the ones I meant to send because like, the display's so small. Yeah, it would be fun to play outside those
Yeah.
those areas, like Roseville. I don't know.
We'll start there.
Yeah. Maybe make it down to Rochester or Red Wing, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty far.
Well, you all play. I mean, you've toured. Like your other bands play Winona all the time. So we just have to get on some bills with your
Yeah.
other band.
Yeah, that's very true.
Do one of those stacked ones where one of the members plays in almost 3 of the bands.
I've
yeah.
never
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah.
I actually, that sounds scary.
It sounds exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that we've kind of jumped into it, I'd like to take it back a little bit. I know you've kind of talked about this before and how the band came together, but I'd like to hear the band's origin story and kind of how Ahem is where we are now as it is here.
Yeah.
So
Who wants to go? Well, you just did it.
I did it last time.
I could do it, but
All right,
I feel
let's
like
do-
I'm
Yeah,
not
let's
the
hear
person
your.
to do it.
Let's hear.
I feel like
Okay,
you are.
I
I
know
do
the
too.
story. Let me tell it. So Eric, new to Minnesota. He had some songs
Okay.
and he's like, I gotta get these songs recorded. And his wife worked with Elise at a coffee shop. And Emily was like, oh, Elise is an amazing drummer. You should have Elise play the drums on this recording that you wanted to do. So then they played together and we were like, wow, this is magical. We're going to be a band. And then they played a couple of shows and everyone told them to get a bass player. And they're like, well, okay. And so then they hooked up with Sam Stallman, our mutual friend, who's awesome. And, did the jam. And then Sam's like, I got a lot going on. And then Elise is like, hey, what about you, Courtney? I was like, all right. And here we are.
Hell yeah, that was a great.
That was
rendition.
great. Yeah.
Thank you.
sounds almost like a fairy
Yes.
tale coming
Yeah.
together.
You're our
It was
origin story
magical.
narrator from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those first 2 EPs you put out, those were all like self-recorded and
We did those with Jordan
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of a part of like the origin story too, I guess, is that
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
when Elise and I were writing these songs and then we were like, damn, we should record them. Like that
yeah.
felt like really not a lot of like intention other than just like, we have to record these. And we had been like listening to a bunch of tapes we'd bought at Dead Media, and we kept seeing Jordan's name as like someone who'd recorded these bands that we really loved. And we were like, we should just like send him an email. So I just like ask someone at Dead Media, like, do you know who this Jordan Blue person is? And they're like, oh yeah, that's Frankie Teardrop. You know, like, here's his email address. Just write him. So we just like wrote him. And I think maybe I sent like some phone recordings. And he was like, hell yeah, let's record you. And that was like the best. Honestly, hell yeah.
That's probably what he said.
And so that was kind of where that first tape, which Elise and I recorded as a 2-piece, even though it came out at the point that Sam was in the band.
There's no bass. Right.
There's no bass on that tape, which is kind of crazy, actually. Yeah. And then the second tape we did with Jordan too. So those were both like basement deals. The first one was all basement.
All basement.
Okay.
The second one we were in the studio a bit towards the end.
Okay.
The second one we recorded twice.
IPR. Right.
I keep forgetting about that.
We recorded the entire thing in the basement.
Yes.
And then we got this opportunity to play at IPR for a class.
Okay.
And I think we didn't love our basement recordings. That didn't quite capture it anymore. So we redid the entire thing.
Yeah.
The bunker.
Okay. Sorry, the basement's the bunker.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where connect the dots a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jordan, did the first two. So it was a mix of like, it was just like Jordan's and he's just amazing. Like, we feel very lucky that, especially with that first tape, I feel like, especially as a 2-piece, like we could have wound up, not like there were wrong hands, but like Jordan was absolutely, I feel like the right person to like encourage us in that moment and to like hear us and turn it into what he turned it into, which was super cool. I still remember like listening to the first mixes. It was like 3:30 in the morning. I was on the Green Line, like coming back from, it was the night Prince died, I think.
Oh.
I'd been downtown and there were just like, millions of people everywhere. And I was like riding the train back and they came in. I don't know. It was just like a magical moment, like listening to him. So yeah.
Did he work on the new record as well?
No.
Okay.
So the new one, Jordan was out in California and wonderfully Courtney's husband, Dan, who plays in a band called Busey in town, is also an amazing recorder. What's the official like noun?
Nerd.
I
don't know.
Knob nerd. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Sound man about town. Yeah. So
we're so lucky.
Thankfully, he was down and just like in the same way, he was just like exactly the right person to like. It was just awesome.
And was that also done at IPR? Okay.
Yeah, the first one day we did all the
basic tracking,
bass drum. Yeah, and then the rest was in Courtney and Dan's basement.
Gotcha.
The vocals and
nice.
Yeah.
Was it like I was at the Edina campus then?
Downtown Minneapolis.
Okay. I've been in the Edina one. I did a shot of music video with an old band I was in forever ago. So
what band was that?
It's called Allegiant. They never played out. They just needed a bass player randomly. And I was like, I can play bass. So,
hell yeah.
Cool.
If you want to laugh, there's a really bad music video somewhere.
I'm sure it rips. I would love to watch it.
Yeah.
So you connected with Jordan through an email, and you also connected through Matt of Forged Artifacts through just sending an email.
Yeah. I had seen like again online. God, I hate I feel like the future of the world is going to be people like telling histories about themselves, and every sentence will start with and then online. I saw and then, but yes, online. I think I had seen like Matt had like put out a call for submissions.
Okay.
And at that point, I feel like we had our mixes, our final mixes.
Yeah.
And I was, and I told my wife, I was like, this local label who like we love, like a ton of the stuff we were listening to was Forged Artifacts. I was like, oh man, they're like, and it was like, send them your shit, And I was like, no, it's just stupid. I like talked myself, and she was like, just seriously sit down right now and just write him an email. And I was like, okay. Like I was so nervous too. Like I just wasn't like, I don't know. So I just wrote and sent maybe like Umbrella, like one song. And he was just like, hell yeah, I want to hear more. And then he was like, let's get a beer. Like, let's do this. And it was like, oh, sweet.
We met him at the Viking bar.
Met him at the Viking bar.
I never knew that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I just remember it felt like so otherworldly because like it hadn't been that long before that we were just like in a basement, the two of us didn't even live in the bunker. Yeah. Like didn't really know how to get a gig. Didn't really know, you know, like we were, I don't know. It was very cool.
Yeah. It seems like Matt is very like involved in trying to find artists that have the potential to do something like you guys. Cause I saw like Primrose they have a tape coming out at the end of November, and I was like, they have less than 100 likes on Facebook. Yeah. The attention isn't there for almost a label to pick up. But yeah. I
mean, I'm pretty sure when like I feel like we probably had like 30 Facebook like straight up. So Matt's the best. I mean, it's like insane. I think he's been doing Forged for 8 years. He's done like 90 releases.
That's insane.
It's just him.
Yeah.
Like talk about like how many people he's given a platform to, especially like early first release artists. It's so inspirational what he's done.
And like much like you guys, he also works like a full-time gig on top of it.
So it's like his passion.
Yeah. We love you, man.
Yeah.
So I was listening to the interview that came out on Pass the Mic a couple of days ago, and you mentioned that Try Again didn't start out as a full length. It was just going to be like a third EP. What was the decision to go and extend it for a couple more tracks to make it that full length? Because that obviously is a tall order to suddenly make something like that without trying to just stuff filler and stuff into it. So what was that conversation like?
Well, we'd been just throwing around the idea of maybe our third or maybe our first full length or our third recording would be on vinyl. It's like. And so we'd just been saying that for a while. And so then I think we finally just started being like, well, we have 5 songs. We're not going to record for a little while. Should we just see what happens and shoot for a goal of 25 minutes or whatever you need?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, at least you've never put out vinyl before, right? That for all of us, this is the first time we've ever done that. And so it felt like this special magical thing. And so I think once we got the idea in our head, became like a goal. Like we're like, okay, this could actually happen, and let's go for it. Let's just throw everything we've got in and see what happens. And
because we got the next free date at IPR, and that was like this like glowing date on our calendar. And we were like, what should we do in those 3 hours? And it was like, the logical thing would be to do 5 songs. Just fuck it. Like, let's try. Like we either make it or we don't. Yeah. I'm glad we tried.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great. I got to listen to it a couple of times, and it's
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So did you have like a lot of? How much time did you have to do to write the extra songs for Try Again? Because I know I was listening to some hardcore band interview. They're always like, well, we start our recording date and then we just like write all of the songs in 2 weeks and we see what goes from there. So did you try to like frantically bang out the other handful, or what was that like?
We had a bit more time, I think. A few months.
Months? Okay.
Yeah, it was probably like November, because we recorded in early February at PR. And I want to say it was like late October. I remember it was winter. Yeah. I had poison ivy really bad, and in November. It was like sometime around then.
Yeah, and we were like, let's try not to take many gigs and just hunker down and write.
Yeah. So we had a little bit of time.
But it was still short enough that we could write down every practice until that February date. Because I remember like writing down like, okay, we have 1, 2, 3, however many, X many practices.
Right. Yeah.
And like, what are we going to have to do to get that done? And sometimes we, took longer or shorter on a song.
Totally.
Yeah, we like wrote out all our just like names for the songs that we later were like, what did that mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
And like checklists, like, does it have music? What does it need lyrics?
Oh yeah.
Does it need
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So that because you write pretty collectively, it's not like one person bringing something to the table and adding, right? Or is it someone who brings an idea, or what's that look like then? Eric
usually brings in an idea.
Okay.
Maybe a verse and a chorus, or just something. A couple of parts. Yeah, riff. Usually no lyrics yet.
Right.
And then we, but maybe a melody.
Yeah.
And then we add our parts and
Structure it. I feel like we always structure it last.
we're like, well, these are the parts. What's the order? Should we repeat anything?
Right.
And then, just feel out what's going on.
Yeah.
Finish it together.
Yeah.
I should have asked this question a few minutes ago, but what was it like recording in front of the students at IPR? Because, I mean, coming from like a basement studio or working in a studio, I shouldn't say that, but like, it's a little more intimate as opposed to almost feels like you're not putting on a show, but like it's definitely a little more raw and in the open, especially when you're working on personal songs.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But I would say like not that it didn't start that way, but it wasn't like, oh, hell yeah, we get to go to like the studio. It's going to be the dopest thing ever. Like I was full of the same, like, I kind of hate going to the studio, like it's just like, cause it's not comfortable the way the bunker is comfortable. Like it just and writing, or at least for, I don't know, it's such a personal thing that like you get used to your comfort spaces too. And especially when we were like, we're bringing in all these new songs that like some of which we know, we've played them a ton, but like even like Courtney's always like, I was still like looking at like riff charts of like how songs went in the studio while we were recording live. And then I think we had this like all these not expectations, but like we had set ourselves this goal. We're like, can we do 10 songs? And it's like a 5-hour block, and that doesn't even include setup. And and they're students, so you also don't want to be like, hurry up, like time's a waste. And it's like, we're here for them. Like it's not the fucking other way around. Like we are here for them. And so you don't want to like rush their experience of like miking a snare drum and all this. So by the time
it was a little stressful. Thinking back, I was like, if we didn't finish, what would we have done? Like, it would have if we tried to like do the other few songs somewhere else, it would have sounded totally
wouldn't work.
Different.
Yeah. So we were kind of, and then on top of that, you're like in a studio, you got the earphones on. It's just like so strange. But the students were so cool. It was like they were like clapping after every take, and they would each take a turn at the mixing board.
And they were complimenting us. I remember like when I first showed up and all these kids were there, I'm like, I hope they like our songs. Like I really like wanted them to like our music.
Yeah.
And then they were
so
complimenting us, and I was like, okay, we can do this. We've got this.
Yeah.
It really spurred us on.
Yeah, really.
And made us feel at home. And then, honestly, I'm kind of like, would it have happened without them? Like what energy did that give back to us, where it kind of took us out of that realm of like, okay, like we can't do that many takes. We're going live. Yeah. And so like, we've got to be able to get like a solid take. We don't use metronomes or clicks or anything. So we're also like, one take might be like 3 times too fast and it's just out the window.
Yeah.
Which we often do.
We've done that in the past.
And so it was rad.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it would happen again. I think it was very like magic in a bottle.
Less confident and been like, oh, maybe we should do that again. And then, but their confidence and support, we were like, okay, that was good. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Is there a certain vibe to Try Again that situation you feel gave it to when you listen back to it that maybe you didn't have on the first 2 EPs, or is that maybe a little too kind of, I don't know, pretentious of a thought? I mean, pretentious isn't the right word, but
no, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is a really good question. I like to think there's something in each one that's like very unique to the moment that it was recorded, because they were all so different, such different circumstances. And I do kind of feel like, even for how like not rushed, but like how compacted our time was, that actually comes through in this kind of like woolly polish. Like it's not like a pristine polish, but there's something that's really, I think, tighter almost to this one. Certainly than the first one. The first tape is super loose, you know, in my mind, which is like, it's really punky in that way. And this one, there's a certain amount of like, it feels like the day we recorded it.
Yeah,
and
true
I feel
to the
like,
moment.
and I feel like it maintained that as we like did all the overdubs in Courtney and Dan's basement. Like that part didn't go away. So.
And there's some of those songs, I think we can never play that way again. Like Canopy. It's like,
totally.
it's never going to be that same song.
Yeah, that was fun too. That a lot of those songs we were recording, like, it's almost like if like writing a song, or like when you find your song, is like throwing a pebble into like a calm lake, and all the ripples like expand, and like every ripple is like another time you've played it, and like usually like by the time you're like recording a song, like you're like all the way out at the bank from that like original like moment of inspiration. And a lot of these songs, we were like on the third ripple, like we were recording them when
played
they
it
were
a few times.
still so close to like the magic of like, and Canopy's one I still remember it because that's a weird song for us.
Yeah.
Playing that, it felt late at night, even though it probably wasn't, but it's the bunker, so you don't know. It's a different kind of song. It just felt so like comforting and spacey and special, and then to be able to record it so closely to when that moment had happened.
Right.
That's
I
a
think
great
you're
way to
Felt
say it.
super cool.
right. Like, I think we don't play it really anymore, probably because it's like, that was like yeah. You can't just keep
I think I
playing
play
that one in a way.
3 notes in that song over and over the entire time, which is like not my usual, like and so, yeah, exactly. Like when we recorded it, I remember still being uncertain, like, is this even the right bass line for this song? And I think it is, but it was just so close to that
Totally.
first. Yeah.
This is the first record you pressed on vinyl. What was it like being able to hold the record in your hand for the first time? Because I guess that's one thing. Like, it's great to have physical media, but it's a vinyl record. Like, what was that like to just open the box and kind of feel them?
It was magical. I had no expectations that it was going to be so magical, but it was just like, I couldn't stop smiling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Elise handed them to us in the studio where we recorded.
Yes.
It was the night that we did the Pass the Mic podcast, which was in the same room. So it was like a really trippy thing to like hold it for the first time, like 6 feet from where I'd been standing, like being like, are we going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
You know? That felt very
Full circle.
It was a cool full circle moment.
Yeah.
So on Try Again, I know a lot of like music publications that you've gotten kind of talk about kind of your sunny disposition, kind of the happy sad. If I can't remember what movie that is, when they talk about the Cure, but the kind of childlike attitude you look at a lot of stuff through your songs. But it feels like Try Again has a few more shadows casted on it every now and then through kind of the stresses of life. So what are some ways you guys try to move back to the headspace you're in? You find a little bit in the earlier stuff and some of that kind of that like the growing up part of the themes in your music. Well, I just threw a lot of words at you, and some of them might not have been connected very well. But
No. Well, I'm kind of just, I feel like a child still in many ways. So I'm already there in that place most of the time. But I think Eric has a kid, so that probably influences.
All the time. All the time. Just like, I mean, can't help but like relive your own childhood, you know? When you watch someone go through theirs, that feels like a part of you or is a part of you in that way. So I think that, and then, you know, coupled with like fending off the loss of childhood and like silliness and goofiness and like that kind of like skinned knee, climbing a tree, just kind of like freedom, you know, that, I don't know, for me anyway, that feels like something I'm always kind of like engaged in, is that process of like, I do want to grow up, you know, but I want to like, I don't know, grow up the way I want to grow up, you know? I don't know. That sounds weird to say. Here's like an example of like in my work, like I'm really lucky in that I get to work with people from like every generation. Like I work and get to know like really closely, not just people in their 30s or 40s or 50s, but like all the way up to like, I work with people in their 90s. And like, I meet 40-year-olds who are more, you know, just like have kind of are struggling with having lost like a certain kind of that feeling of like, I didn't hold on to certain parts of me that were core. Like I kind of let them slip away chasing something else. And then I work with like people in their 90s who are just like, as like, it's not that they're carefree, but they just have a young, even as their body is, you know, like going against them in that way. I don't know. I feel like I'm always trying to hold on to that goofiness or something.
Yeah, and I feel like there's like this weird belief that like when you grow up, quote unquote, you like let go of art or music. I know like my mom and some people will be like, oh, like once you start a family or once you whatever, then you like let go of music or you let go of art. And I feel like maybe for me, like part of being in the band is like refusing to do that. I don't know. Like I'm not going to give up this like central part of what brings me joy just because I'm getting older. Like that's what helps me get through the the shittier parts of being an adult.
Right.
Because like your song, like your second single, "No Kid," kind of has that idea of tucking in your shirt, you know, cleaning up and kind of coming, but you want to hold on to that thing that makes it special. And it seems like listening to the record's side A, kind of the first 5 songs, seems to have more of the trying to like the sense of loss and the trying to grasp with that, and side B is more of the looking towards it almost. Is that
that's cool?
When programming it, was that kind of the general idea, or what was?
I mean,
maybe subconsciously.
Yeah, maybe. I'm trying to think if we like programmed more musically or like conceptually. I'm not. Yeah. I think we probably did a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do feel like there's a lot in this album that's about like slowing down, not running away, but like escaping from whatever it is that you just don't want to be a part of, you know, that whether that's like I moved out to the woods, you know, and that wasn't like an escape as much as just like I want to slow myself down, like by having this flip phone or like whatever it is. And I feel like there is more maybe on that second half that's kind of about like embracing that, like the canopy kind of like what that song talks about in terms of shelter or just like caring for others. And I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought of it. I'm not sure.
I feel like we knew we wanted canopy on the second side, and I think we wanted maybe the slower, sort of more reflective pieces.
Which then was kind of like maybe like reinforced by the way that instead of doing like a side A and a side B, like we riffed off of the design from Alexis Politz, who did the art, and had them be, you know, side A is the Reply Hazy response from the Magic 8 Ball, and the other one is Try Again, you know? And so even there's kind of this like Reply Hazy, like, I don't really know, but it's like, try it again. And that was what appealed to us about that album title, which actually came from Alexis.
Oh, okay.
And the original art that we saw for it, we were like struggling with what the right title would be. And we've always loved titles that like give you the both, like that happy, sad, up and down kind of a thing. And we were like, oh, Try Again. That's like perfect. Cause it's like, you say that one way and it's kind of, it's like the authoritarian, you know, like not good enough. You did it wrong. Try it again. And the other is the more like, just try it again. Yeah. Like just keep going like that. That's where it lies. So I feel like the second half is full of songs that are like, we hope
it's
like,
more,
try it again.
I like that.
Kind of gives that back to that like child sense of like a parent encouraging to do again. Just so you don't get gun shy of something that maybe kind of knocked you down a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe it's like our adult self saying, try again to our young self again.
Yeah.
So this, like one of the songs I specifically wanted to ask about on the album is the album's closer, Sunspots, just because it sounds so different production wise than the rest of the album. Was that recorded with, was it the baby head mic or whatever? I was like, I heard about that and I was like, that sounds fascinating. Was that what?
It's so creepy.
It's so creepy.
I feel like that's a Courtney story.
Yeah.
The baby doll.
Well, I will say, okay, so when Dan and I first started dating, he had a really messy bedroom.
Okay.
And I remember one of the first times I saw it, there was just this plastic baby head that was like cut open, spray painted gold, and then with a microphone inside of it.
And it looks like it's kind of like stitched.
It's like,
like
it's
like
its mouth is stitched back. Or no, maybe it's stitched. Yeah, it's so creepy.
It has been cut with some sort of like box cutter. It's a clean cut, and then it's like stitched back together.
It's very surgical.
It's just very creepy. And I remember seeing that and being like, okay, this is the kind of person that I'm getting into.
Something you do often.
Yeah, little did I know, 6 years later,
Yeah.
that microphone would be part of our album. But it's a creepy looking microphone. But Dan loves it. He thinks it has like some magical powers to give like this lo-fi sound.
And I think we were describing the sound we wanted for that song. We are like, really lo-fi, fuzzed out, and he was like, "I've got the perfect thing."
I got the mic.
He pulls it out of the shadows.
Yeah.
What about wanting it to sound like that drew you to the idea of closing the record that way? Because it sounds almost like a demo, or like you record on your iPhone sitting in like the middle of the table or something.
I think that's exactly like how we wanted it. Yeah, I think that was the point in a way, was like, I feel like we try not to overwork all our songs too much, but like a lot of our songs, if you strip them back to where they started, wouldn't sound that much different from Sunspots. Like if it was just the acoustic guitar, like if I was like sitting on the floor, like strumming a melody that I heard, it kind of starts in that like precious little space in a way. And so I think we just wanted I don't know. It just was meant to kind of be like that. And I think for me initially it was because I wanted it to just be as close as it was to the moment that I wrote it, because it just felt
First ring.
What's that?
First ring.
The first ring, like even before like the ring, like just like even before the stone hits the water almost, because it felt like that kind of moment when the song just happened. And yeah, and then but I don't think we really knew what to do with it. We were kind of like, we want to keep it lo-fi, but like, will it even fit on the album? Like, what will it sound like? Should we like add in some more things around it? And I just remember like we did a take in the basement with the baby head on the floor or whatever, kind of thinking we were going to add more to it. And Courtney and Dan were just like, leave it. Like just exactly as it is. Like you can hear the chair creaking and everything. And I've always kind of loved songs that did that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's almost like if you're listening back to like the Alan Lomax folk recordings or something like the Library of Congress.
I love that stuff, like the Sun House recordings where like he's literally in the field and it's like 3 a.m. because it would be dangerous for Sun to be recording this publicly because of, you know, the kind of, I mean, the Klan, and you can hear the train in the background. Like I have these other recordings where you hear chickens, you know, and I just always love, because you just feel like you're right there in that moment. And I don't know, I feel like even when we got asked to play the Replacements like tribute night, one of the songs that we did was Treatment Bound. And I've never really listened to much of the Replacements, but that's like an acoustic song that closes one of their albums. It's just like totally raw around the edges, and it's definitely about something very different than like an ahem song, you know. Like there's less cocaine in our
hard drugs
closing
and
song.
alcohol,
but it also just feels so special. I don't know, and then I think to me it felt like kind of like a collective act of bravery to be like like fuck it, let's leave it and let's like close the album with it, because it like is who we are too. Even though it felt a little weird to be like, on one hand, we're doing like our biggest thing, which is like our full length, and it's going to be on vinyl. And so you almost want to over care for it, which is almost like the best reason to care less about that part of it and just be like, no, do what you want. Like, don't be ashamed of like what you want.
Well, it's a great closing statement on essentially the band's, well, I know you put out 2 EPs, but like your very first full length statement as a band is something special there. How close to writing the song was it recorded then? Had you sat on it for a while, or?
I think it might have been the last.
I think you played it for us like a few weeks before, maybe.
Yeah.
But we hadn't really.
I didn't even write a
touched
bass
it.
line for it.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't write new drums or anything.
Yeah, I'd maybe played it once for you all or twice. Like I feel like that was the first time I'd ever heard you sing it.
Yeah,
when we recorded it, like your harmonies on there. I think maybe we'd practiced it once. I don't have any.
I think
memory
we practiced
of that.
it right before we
Right
hit
before.
record.
Oh yeah, we were eating
upstairs.
pizza. Yeah.
Yeah.
You all
Yeah.
practiced the vocals, and then we went downstairs and recorded it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Right
yeah,
after
so
eating
maybe
pizza.
it was a week or two
Okay.
from like when I wrote it, just on like this like freezing cold morning, like standing by a river, and it just like it took like 25 seconds. It was one of those weird, like, it's almost like what you hear about like more from writers, where they're like, oh, I was out on a walk and this thing came to me, and then I had to like run home
Before
and
you
like
lost
get it down on
yeah.
paper before I lost it. And that's like the only time that's happened, where it was just kind of like the whole thing just kind of like slotted into my brain while I was like looking at this river like break its ice up. It was like ice out, and it was starting to like shed and things. So you had these big drifts of ice, which I think is where the whole like heart melting kind of imagery came from, or like
Ice flow.
ice flowing. And then I was just like, I got to get home. And like, I didn't even know what key. I was just like, I'm sure it's like whatever the simplest like chords are probably what they are, like G, C, and D. And I just ran home and just like record. It's probably on this phone somewhere would be my guess. So
That's so cool. So just to kind of wrap things up here, what does the rest of 2019 and beginning of 2020 look like for you as a band?
We haven't really
Thought about
planned
it?
it out. Yeah.
I know.
We've been so focused on this. It's like,
know.
get to Saturday.
Yeah.
Play the release show.
I think we have a couple of shows
Yeah.
lined up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
December and November.
Yeah.
Take a nice deep breath after the
Yeah.
Maybe write some songs.
We're into
I
the
can't
slowing
wait.
down.
Yeah.
We like slowing down
That's
that
fair.
winter and writing.
Yeah.
how has it been trying to put together and do the hype for a full length release? Because I mean, we talked about at the beginning how you did a couple interviews back to back tonight, and then you've done a bunch of other press and coverage. Is it something you expected, you were prepared for as a band, or is it kind of caught you off guard?
There's just a lot to do.
Yeah, more than usual. Yeah.
We're like currently burning the image of the t-shirt we want to hopefully have by Saturday onto the screen also right now.
Yeah.
In Courtney's bathtub.
That's like,
Yeah.
so it's like a lot
Kinda
of things
rushing.
at once. And even though that can seem stressful, it's really cool and exciting. And yeah.
Yeah.
So then if people want to follow Ahem, which I highly recommend, where should people be able to find you and know what everything's going on?
Yeah. On the
Spotify.
internet.
Internet.
Yeah.
Instagram,
Instagram,
Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
Spotify.
Just add Ahem, or
I think
Hello Ahem.
at Hello
some
Ahem, I
places.
think it is. Yeah. Yeah, and I couldn't say like which one we're most active on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like any of those, we'd be there.
that's fair.
We're spotty.
Sometime.
in our
We're spotty.
responses
We
sometimes.
are. I know. We're trying to get better.
It's
Yeah.
okay. The other guy who runs Your Coffee is the social media whiz. I'm fine
Nice.
staying away from it.
Yeah. Nice.
It is.
We got no whizzes here.
I know.
Whirlwind.
Maybe we should add like a
Flute.
flautist, but actually
good.
just hire someone who's like a social media
media.
whiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would rule. Then every time we record, they're like, "Why is my like flute like totally like panned out of the mix?" Like I don't know. It's so weird. It just must be
Yeah,
like
I can hear
frequencying
it.
out or something. But how
How's-
are things
how's
looking on
Facebook?
Twitter?
You're getting those impacts.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for sitting down and talking with me today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
so
much
much.
for inviting us
Yeah.
into your home.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.